Hi, I'm Clark on Temptress. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I developed an air conditioner that uses surprisingly little power. I have AC on my sailboat in the tropics that runs all night off just a tiny bit of lithium battery, and the next morning the solar panels charged me back up. Well, when I put it together, it worked, and it used so little power, I thought, well, this is wonderful. I passed this all to a guy named Stuart who does the day-to-day. You've seen videos with Stuart. Stuart dove into it and he improved it. This is the improvement in this box. So in this video, we're gonna go over this, how to make air conditioning even better, and we're gonna talk about air conditioning theory, which is refrigeration theory, deeper than I have before. Kind of specifically about what this does, but in the process, you're gonna learn a lot more about air conditioning. Let's look at what's in the box. I never do unboxing videos because I think the day that I open the box is the day I know the least about it. Why the heck would you want to listen to me? But I know all about what's in this box because Stuart told me, and I've seen it in action in his lab. This is what's called an expansion valve. And this one is better than the one I use in the initial air conditioner. Oh, there's lots of little things in here. Like I said, don't know what's in there the first day. Okay, so what do we have? We have this, which looks like some fittings to make it kind of universally fit. I'll be installing this in the prototype air conditioner that's in my camper, so we'll learn what we need, what we don't need. Okay, so this is what connects this to a flare fitting, and put that aside. This apparently holds this little thing. I'll talk about that in depth. It's copper, so it's trying to move heat to make it the same temperature. I imagine you wrap it all with this for a bit of installation. But here's the magic. This is called an expansion valve. And what an expansion valve does is you hook it up to the incoming high pressure gas, which is actually a liquid at this point, coming out of the compressor. And that is going to go through this and be allowed to expand. And when it expands, it comes out of here as kind of a mixed aerosol, lots of little bubbles of liquid that are still waiting to evaporate, and some that already evaporated in the valve. And refrigeration works mostly on phase change. If you take a gas and compress it, it gets hot. If you cool it down, go someplace else and let it expand, it will absorb heat from that area. That's all well and good. That would be refrigeration. But you could do that with air, just pressurizing air. It works, but it doesn't move a lot of heat. How you get most of the heat moved in the system is a phase change. When you go from that compressed gas that's really hot and high pressure, and you take the heat out of it, it will condense, like steam would condense after it comes out of a teapot, you know, and get things wet. That condensing changes it to a liquid, and the process of going to a liquid, it gives off loads of heat. All that goes out through the condenser, blows into the air or goes into the water. Then that liquid goes into here. This is the expansion valve. And you can think of the expansion valve as sort of like a aerosol on I don't know, hairspray, whatever comes in an aerosol nowadays. It takes the liquid high pressure and lets it go off as a low pressure that can expand. So the expansion is controlled and happens here. This could have been done with just a little hole in the tube, a little restriction, but then you have all these calibration problems. And you want to get it just exactly right. Now, we do this on refrigeration on boats. It's called a capillary tube system, and it's really good enough for them because the fridge is always fridge temperature, you know, and it's kind of the same all the time. But an air conditioner has to work on super hot days and colder days and all kinds of stuff. Also, we're moving a lot more energy with the air conditioner, and this guy just has some more capability. Now, I have one of these that came with the early air conditioners that I made available. They were, kits, and over 100, I don't know, 130 or whatever of you guys out there have them on your boats, mostly boats, some in campers. The version of this I supplied, I believe, was rated for 4 tons. It was for an automobile. And there's a big engine under there and a big compressor, and you're moving a lot of heat because you're kind of in like a greenhouse with bad insulation with hot air blowing over the top as you go down the highway. So you need to really move some heat. Turns out it was way too big. Now it worked, and it worked really efficiently compared to everything I'd seen before, but there's room for improvement. What happens with that one is the valve is, let's say it's normally closed. And in comes this high pressure source, and then this is more vacuum here on this side. This is going back through the system. It compares the temperature here to the temperature on the gas coming out of the system. And it wants to keep it kind of at a dull hiss, just moving along at the power level that the compressor can replace. Well, the one that I sent before, being rated at 4 tons, has kind of too big of a hole. So it will say, oh yeah, these pressures are pretty close to each other. Let's have some more gas. Trying to go squirt, but it goes flood. And everything floods through the system. The pressures drop on the pressure side. Everything gets cold. A lot of the cold gets wasted because it can't absorb enough heat in the evaporator. Comes out the back tube gets really, really cold. This gets cold. The pressure differential causes it to close down. The pressure builds up, builds up, builds up. Everything in the evaporator warms up, does it again. This guy is rated for, I don't even know, a lot less. I think it's under 2 tons. It's appropriate to the compressor that's in that air conditioner. And what it does is, instead of going big squirt, when it sees that the temperatures are equalized and it's time for more refrigerant, it just squeezes a little bit and hiss, out it comes. And then a little more if necessary. Once this bulb on the vacuum tube going back starts to get a little cool, it backs off because that's too much, it's just wasted. And then a little more and a little less. And you get more consistent pressure. And that more consistent pressure is more efficient. Partly, as I mentioned, you don't lose that potential cooling back down the refrigeration line, but also you're not waiting to build the pressure up again. So the compressor is not having to pump to such a high pressure. It's pumping to a lower amount. And the big gulp of fluorocarbon that comes out on its way back to the compressor, it makes the low pressure side higher in pressure. And the higher pressure is like the compressor can grab more molecules of air every cycle. All of that means it burns more amps. So what I'm hoping is we're going to see that this uses less electricity to do the same job, and the temperature of the air coming out of the air handler is actually cooler relative to the air going in than it is now. So this would all be apples to apples. I have set the RPM of the compressor at a known state. I have set both of the blowers at a known state, and for the period of this test, I will not change anything. Then I put a gauge set on, and I perfectly charged the system. So it's as good as it can be, and I ran it. And you can see with my little thermal camera that the air coming into the air conditioner air handler is around 80, and the air coming out is about 10 degrees cooler. So we're going to now install this guy, and once we get it installed, I'm going to charge it all up again, and we're going to do exactly the same test, and we're going to hope for more than 10 degrees of temperature differential. Then we're going to look at the amp meter and hope we see fewer than the number of amps we saw before. If either or both of those happen, this is a win. If you want one of these, you can talk to Stuart. They're available. If anybody is buying an air conditioner now, they come with this, so no need to worry about it. You'll be getting the best that we know of. We're always trying to make it better, and there's always something being worked on somewhere to improve something. Innovation is fun. Okay, off to the camper. All right, I came in because I got the old one out and I was putting the new one in and I realized I better tell you what's going on now that I finally figured it out. This is the orifice. It was in that little tube. I didn't know what it was. It goes in the compressor side of this, and then it gives you a flare fitting. This is a part I had already had in the old install, and it reduces the flare fitting to the size that I use, 1/4 inch, I think. So that'll go on, and it's going to go on super tight with some of that goo that I use that keeps tigers away. You can see it in other videos. I'll put a link to it below. It's just a sealant that works with this lubricant. This is a port for adjusting this and making it perfect. I'm not touching it. Stuart says don't touch it. I'm not touching it. I recommend you don't touch it. Leave it sealed. Now this end is a flare fitting from the factory, but they gave you this little adapter. Or actually, I think Stuart gave you this adapter. And it goes from a large flare fitting to the O-ring type fitting that is used in the air handler. So Stuart got everything you need right here. I didn't know it, so I spent some time messing around, but here it is. Now that's going to go on, and the compressor goes here, and there you go. Now back at it. Got it all installed, charged the system back up, turned it on, and I was quite impressed. Remember, there was more or less a 10-degree Fahrenheit difference between the hot and the cold, the air coming into the air handler and the cold air being blown out? Well, same blower settings, the same amount of air being pushed across it. And now I went from, in the case of this test, 83-degree incoming air and 57-degree outcoming air. That's 26 degrees, not 10, 11. Now I checked the current. The current was just a little higher. With all the blowers and the compressor and everything run, that camper's not very well insulated, so I have it turned up pretty high. It was doing about 22 amps. Now it's 23 amps. So less than 5% more power and kind of sort of double the cooling. That's well worth it. I think Stuart found a good expansion valve, and if you've got one of the older systems, I would put one in. It's worth the effort. I'll be taking one to the DR with me when I get back to Temptress. She'll have this new valve, and I'll get even better numbers than I had when I ran the numbers initially. Tell me what you think of this video. I mean, it's a little bit of an advertisement for something, but it lets you know how refrigeration works, and that's useful because the more you know, the more you can do for yourself, but also the more you can hire people to do things for you without them screwing with you, you know? So please send a comment. Also, I just bought a new gauge set. It's electronic. I've always used analog gauges because, you know, out on the boat, if something goes wrong, it's a big thing. But here I've got Amazon, so I decided to splurge, and I really like it. Would you guys like a video on how to charge a refrigeration system using these new gauges that figure out all the math for you and tell you what subcooling values are and superheat is and all of that? Would that be useful? Please comment. Bye from Clark on Temptress.